Are we on? Yep, we're ready. Are we on? Okay. Shabbat shalom, everyone. Welcome to those of you who are here in person and anyone watching online. It's nice to be here this morning. Just to remind you, there are a few special things about today. One is we will be reading the Ten Commandments, so that means everybody's going to stand up and say the blessing for Torah reading together and stand while we actually read the Ten Commandments, if you are able, and if you're not, that's fine, we'll let you sit, but don't worry. And then the other thing, of course, is that we do have a special speaker today, the Rev Dr Karl Rutlidge, who is the Methodist minister for Kingston and New Malden Methodist churches. So I'll be saying a few words, and then Karl will be speaking. And so consequently, you may notice that we have kind of truncated some bits of the service so as to not keep you here past your lunch, basically. But there is cake, because tomorrow is my birthday. So you're all going to be rewarded for coming to the service, not only with hearing the Ten Commandments and hearing Karl, but with some really nice birthday cakes, because we went to Bachman's pastry shop. So, okay, we'll be starting on page 1112.
With Matovu.
Matovu.
And I'm going to use a tune that used to be in regular use here, but hasn't been used for a while. So if you can't remember the tune, you might look at the English translation on page 112 of some very ancient text. But if you look at it, you might find some contemporary meaning that suits you yourself. Matovu alecha Yaakov, Mishkanotecha Yisrael, Vani baruch azdecha avo veitecha, Eshtachavei el heichal koshecha b'yiratecha, Adonai ahavti me'yom b'techa u'mekom mishkan kavodecha. Ani eshtachavei ve'ekra evrecha lifnei Adonai osi. Ani tefilati lecha Adonai et ratzon Elohim baruch azdecha Ameini be'emet yishecha.
We continue together at the bottom of the page. Eternal God, a mystery surrounds my life. What came before it and what lies beyond it are shrouded in darkness. But in the darkness is your presence, and in the mystery, your love. No mind can grasp the splendor of your being. No tongue express the majesty of your works. Yet there are times when we sense a reality that is beyond our mortal sight. May this Sabbath be such a time for us. Help us to hear your voice, to find your image in our souls, and to be at peace. And on page 113, this first prayer, we give thanks to God for our souls, and we remind ourselves that our souls are pure, and of course the sideline of that is that so are everybody else's, and that's something that we need to remember every time we meet people. So we're going to sing Elohai Neshama.
Yeah. So let's start by reading the first two sentences together. My God, the soul you have given me is pure. You have created it and formed it
and breathed it into me. And you sustain it within me.
And then we have a chant in which I hope those words will sort of circulate within your thinking whilst you join in the chant. Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehorai. 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 Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehorai.
Baruch atah Adonai, asher b'yado nefesh kol chai, v'ruach kol basar yesh. We praise you, O God, in whose hands are the souls of all the living and the spirits of all flesh. Baruch she'amar v'haya ha'olam, Baruch hu, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech ha'olam, ha'mechulal b'fi amo, משובח ומפואר בלשון חסידיו ויעבדיו, בשבחות וזמירות נגדל לך ונמליכך, מלכנו יחיד חי העולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, מלך מחולל בתשבחות. And we turn to page 132 at the bottom of the page. We read responsively from Psalm 33. Sing for joy to the Eternal One, you who are righteous. Give thanks to the Eternal One with the lyre. Sing to God a new song. For God's word holds good. The Eternal One loves righteousness and justice. By the Eternal One's word the heavens were made. At the divine command the ocean waves rise. Let all the earth revere the Eternal One, who spoke and it was. And we continue on the bottom of page 134, singing Psalm 150.
Hallelujah, Berkasho, Hallelujah, Berkiauzo, Hallelujah, Bevigrota, Hallelujah, Karokudlo, Kohen Shamad, Hallelujah, 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 take a shofar, Hallelujah, Benevel Bekino, Hallelujah, Tofu Mako, Hallelujah, Bemini Beuka, Kohen Shamat, Hallelujah, 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 Kohen Shamat, Hallelujah, 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 Batil Slay Shama, Hallelujah, Batil Slay Trua, Kohen Shamat, Hallelujah, 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 Kohen Shamat, Hallelujah, Hallelujah, Hallelujah.
of page 135. Yishtabach Shemcha La'ad Malkeinu, Ha'el HaMelech HaGadol VaHaKadosh B'Shamayim Uva'Aretz. Ki Lecha Na'eh Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu, Shir U'Shvacha Halev Zimra, Barachot V'Horaot Mi'ata V'Ad Olam, Baruch Atah Adonai Habocher B'Shirei Zimra. Resume our seats. The two prayers following the call to worship, the Baruch Hu, which we've just sung, they have two different themes, and the first one is about creation, and the second one is about God's compassion. And in lieu of the first one, I'm going to read a different prayer by Mark Solomon, because it's all about creating light, creating darkness, the cycles of the year, and creating us as well, and how our lives are. So these are Mark Solomon's words, my friend and colleague, Rabbi Mark Solomon. You form light and create darkness. As time is a tapestry of day and night, our lives are a weaving of light and dark. Like a slow dawn, we discover who we are. Like twilight, we linger in doubt and anxiety. We endure nights of rejection by others and ourselves, and bright days of acceptance and joy in who we are. You make peace and create everything. We look around and see a world of endless change and diversity. As we rejoice in the variety of creation, we come to accept our own uniqueness. As we delight in our own uniqueness, we appreciate all human diversity, and we live at peace with ourselves and with all creation. Baruch atah Adonai Yotzer HaMeorot. We praise you, O God, creator of light. Great is your love for us, eternal God, and abundant your compassion. Our ancestors trusted in you, and you taught them the laws of life. So be gracious to us and teach us. Incline our hearts to hear your words, to know and understand, to learn and teach, and with love to uphold the truths of your Torah. Enlighten us with your teaching. Make us faithful to your commandments, and with wholehearted in the love and awe of your name. For in love you summon us to serve you and proclaim your unity. We praise you, O God. In love you have called your people Israel to serve you. Baruch atah Adonai habocher v'amo Yisrael v'ahava. And we rise for the Shema.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai words which I command you this day upon your when you lie down, when you rise up, bind them as a sign upon your hand, and let them be a symbol before your eyes. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and upon your gates. Ani Adonai Elohechem, I am your God. Leman tisku vasitene kol mitzvotai, item kadoshim lechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeiti etem me'eretz Mitzrayim, liot lachem Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem.
We can resume our seats. We continue together in the middle of page 138. Good and beautiful and true, sound, established, and enduring are these words, now and forever. True it is, Eternal One, that you are a sovereign God and Redeemer, as you were the God and Redeemer of our ancestors. You are our Maker, the rock of our salvation. We have known you always as our helper and our liberator. There is no God but you. Truly you are first and you are last. We have no Redeemer but you. You redeemed us from Egypt and freed us from the house of bondage. Then with great joy, Moses, Miriam, and all Israel together sang to you this song.
Mi chamocha v'elim Adonai, mi chamocha neda b'kodesh, nor tehilot osef eleh.
Shir HaChadashah shebechol geolim l'shimcha sfat hayam yachad kulam huduvihim lichu v'yameru.
Adonai imloch ve'olam ha'ed. Lo Yisrael, koma b'ezrat Yisrael, yo'eleinu Adonai tzvaot shemo, kadosh Yisrael, Baruch atah Adonai, God Israel, God Israel, Israel.
And just before the tefillah, I'd like to welcome whoever is online, if you can see anybody that's joined us.
I don't know the names, but we've got a few.
Okay. No one's spoken up. All right, well, you're welcome. I'd welcome you in person if I knew who you were. So please rise for the tefillah.
Adonai, Sefer Tiftach, Ufi Adi Tehilatecha. Eternal God, open my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el, Hagadol, Hagibor, V'hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot V'imachot, V'mevi Gula Livnei V'neihem, L'ma'an Shemo B'Ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Bezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechaye Meitim Atah, Rav Lehoshia, Mashiv Haruach, U'Morid HaGeshem, Mazriach HaShemesh, U'Morid HaTal. Go ahead and sing it.
Machal Chaim B'Chesed, Machayim Eitim, Rachamim, Rachamim Ravim, Soech Novim, Rofei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emnato, Vishenei Achar, Mi Hamocha Pa'iro, Umido Melach, Melech, Meimit Umekayem, Umasmiach, Umasmiach, Yeshua.
V'nei amanata l'chachayot meitim, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mechayeh HaMeitim. Actually, not yet, but that's okay.
Nakadesh et Shemcha ba'olam, Kashem Shemati Oto B'Shmei Marom, Kakatu al Yad Nevi'echa, al Yad Nevi'echa, Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzavaot, Malach haaretz,
Kevodo Malei Olam.
Baruch kavod Adonai mimkomo.
V'mkomecha malkeinu tofia v'timloch aleinu ki mechakim anachnu lach.
Yimloch Adonai leolam, Elohai Tzion, L'dor ador, Hallelujah. L'dor ador, L'dor ador, L'dor ador, nagid God lecha, L'dor ador, L'dor ador, L'dor ador, nagid God lecha, Ulenetzach netzachim, Ulenetzach netzachim, Kedushatcha, Kedushatcha nagdish, Ulenetzach netzachim, Ulenetzach netzachim, Kedushatcha, Kedushatcha nagdish, L'dor ador, L'dor ador, L'dor ador, nagid God lecha, L'dor ador, L'dor ador, L'dor ador, nagid God lecha, L'shichacha Eloheinu mipenu lo yamush leolam va'ed. Shichacha Eloheinu mipenu lo yamush leolam va'ed.
inspired our ancestors to hallow this day for your service. When upon its coming we pause to contemplate our life, we learn anew that we do not live by bread alone, but also by the spiritual nourishment we receive when we open ourselves to your influence. We thank you for the Sabbath day and for the opportunity it offers to enhance the quality of our lives. We thank you for its joy and for its peace. May our worship help us to take into our hearts its message of holiness and consecrate all our days by devotion to what is true, beautiful, and good.
Yismachuba Malchutachah, Yismachuba Malchutachah, Shomrei Shabbat, V'korei Onei, Amakashe Shvi, Kolam Yisbo, Itangu Mituvecha, V'hashvi, Ratzita Bo, V'kidasho, Endat Yami, Moto Karata, Zecher Matzei Bereshit.
And we continue together in the middle of page 143. Our God and God of our ancestors, may our rest on this day be pleasing in your sight. Sanctify us by your commandments and make us loyal to your teaching. Satisfy us with your goodness, gladden us with your salvation, and purify our hearts to serve you in truth. In your gracious love, Eternal One, let the holiness of your Sabbath enter our hearts, and may all Israel who hallow your name be exalted by its peace. We praise you, O God, for the holiness of the Sabbath.
Say Adonai Eloheinu, Malach Yisrael, U'tefillat
We continue together in the middle of the page. We give thanks that you, Eternal One, are our God, as you are the God of our ancestors. You are the rock of our life, the power that shields us in every age. We thank and praise you for our lives which are in your hand, for our souls which are in your keeping, for the signs of your presence we encounter every day, and for your wondrous gifts at all times, morning, noon, and night. We praise you, O God, source of goodness, to whom our thanks are due.
Sim shalom tova uvracha, sim shalom tova uvracha. Ein v'chesed v'rachamim, sim shalom tova u'bracha, sim shalom tova u'bracha. Ein v'chesed v'rachamim, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, amecha. Aleinu al kol yoshvei tevel, sim shalom tova u'bracha, sim shalom tova u'bracha, ein v'chesed v'rachamim.
You have revealed to us the law of life, a love of kindness and righteousness, blessing and mercy, life and peace. For it is good in your sight that your people Israel and all peoples be blessed at all times with your gift of peace. Baruch atah Adonai, oseh hashalom. We now take a few moments for our own thoughts and silent prayers.
Il ratzon emrefi, il ratzon emrefi, region levi lefanecha, Adonai tzuri v'goli. Oh, may the words of my mouth, the meditation of my heart be acceptable before you, my God, my rock and my Redeemer. Oh, say shalom bimromah. Oh, yeah, say shalom aleinu. Oh, Israel. Oh, yoshvei tevel. Amen.
We continue now with the Torah service on page 490. And I need some people to come and open the ark, and somebody who would be willing to take the scroll out. Sam, I'm looking at you. Would you be willing to take the scroll out? Have you eaten your Wheaties this morning? Yeah, come on. And two ark openers, please. Okay, it looks like Michael's volunteering. Anybody else want to come? Okay, great. Fabulous. Oh, interestingly, usually half the time it's all women. This time it's all men. Yeah. At least as everybody gets dressed. Okay. Tachel et ha'am. Ha'anashim v'hanashim. Hakef v'gerecha asher yeshalecha. Assemble the people, men, women, and children, and the strangers in your cities, to hear and learn to revere the Eternal One, your God, and observe faithfully all the precepts of this Torah. And let their children, who do not yet know it, hear, that they too may learn to revere the Eternal One, your God. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Gadol Shemo.
Gadlul Adonai iti, uneromema Shemo Yachtav.
V'cha Adonai Hagadol Ha'tiferet V'hanetzach V'hachod Hikol b'shamayim u'aretz Hikol b'shamayim u'aretz V'cha Adonai ha'mamlacha V'mitnaseh V'chol v'rov.
I get that because I'm going to be reading Torah. I need it. Yes, I'll have that, please. Very good. Yeah. Torah scrolls have an annoying habit of re-rolling themselves as they get put together and tied up. So 1 second while I find my place. Yes, I believe it is right here. Very good. Okay, what we're reading today is, well, as I've already said, it's the 10 Commandments. You'll find it in Exodus chapter 20, verses 1 to 13. And in a minute, I'm going to ask you to stand up, but I'm tempted to read the translation of it before we actually read the words, so you have an idea of what we're reading. Now, if I'd have thought there were young people here, I'd have probably brought my thunder machine, because I have a thunder machine, which I often would use for this, and I'd be shaking it behind me so you'd get the sound of thunder. And sometimes we've had lightning go off as well, but I didn't bring any of that today. I decided we'd behave ourselves. And so, in English, God spoke all these words, saying, I, the Eternal, am your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods besides me. You shall not make for yourself a sculptured image, or any likeness of what is in the heavens above, or on the earth below, or in the waters under the earth. You shall not bow down to them or serve them, for I, the Eternal One, your God, am an impassioned God, visiting the guilt of the fathers upon the children, upon the third and upon the fourth generations of those who reject me, but knowing kindness to the 1,000th generation of those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not swear falsely by the name of the Eternal One, your God, for the Eternal will not clear one who swears falsely by God's name. And this is like swearing false oaths, not not that we often think about by like just swearing, but swearing a false oath. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Eternal One your God. You shall not do any work, you, your son or daughter, your male or female slave, or your cattle, or the stranger who is within your settlements. And I always think it's worth just reflecting about that for a minute, how absolutely revolutionary that is. Because not so many years ago, slavery was legal, and I can promise you slaves didn't get a day off. And even people who worked in factories or whatever. Oh, we have a bird. How nice. They didn't get days off either. So if you think how revolutionary this thought was, that anybody who worked for you and your animals should have a day of rest. For 6 days the Eternal made heaven and earth and sea and all that's in them, and rested on the seventh day. Therefore God blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. This is a very annoying translation because they're not in one place. Honor your father and your mother, that you may long endure on the land which the Eternal your God is giving you. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's house, your neighbor's wife, his male or female slave, his ox, his ass, or anything that is your neighbor's. And that's where I'm reading to today. So I'm going to ask you now to rise, and we're going to say together the blessing for reading Torah. So are you all open to that in your Siddurim? Okay. So you're all standing. You've got that. So we say together, Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvorach. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen. Vaydaber Elohim et kol hadvarim ha'ele lemor. Anochi Adonai Elohecha asher hotziticha me'eretz Mitzrayim mibeit avadim. Lo ihyeh lecha Elohim acharim al panai. Lo ta'aseh lecha pesel v'chol temuna asher b'shamayim mima'al v'asher ba'aretz mitachat. Asher b'mayim mitachat la'aretz. Lo tishtachave lechem v'lo ta'avdim ki anochi Adonai Elohecha el kana. Poked avon avot al banim al shlashim v'al revi'im l'sonai v'oseh chesed la'olafim li'achavai Ulishmirei mitzvotai. Lo tisa et Shem Adonai Elohecha l'shav, ki lo yenakeh Adonai et asher yisa et Shemo l'shav. Zachor et Yom HaShabbat lekadsho, sheshet yamim ta'avod, va'asita kol melachtecha, vayom hashvi'i Shabbat l'Adonai. Elohecha lo ta'aseh kol melacha ata bincha bitecha avdecha imetecha bechemtecha v'kerecha asher v'yasharecha. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim v'et haaretz. Et hayom v'et kol et hayam, sorry, not day, but see. Et hayam v'et kol asher bam. Vayinach bayom hashvi'i al ken berach Adonai et yom hashabat v'yikadshehu. Kabed et avicha v'emetecha lema'an yarechun yamecha al ha'adama asher Adonai Elohecha noten lach. Lo tirtzach, lo tenaf, lo tegnov, lo ta'aneh bereacha ad shachar. Lo tachmod bet reacha. Lo tachmod eshet reacha v'avdu v'ameto v'shorecha v'chamoro, sorry, v'shiro. Let me just go back again. V'emato v'shoro v'chamoro v'chol asher l'reacha. And we say well, actually, I'm going to say if anybody has never seen a Torah scroll and you'd like to come and see the Ten Commandments because they're written in a very particular way, please come up now. You can come and have a look. That includes you, Carl. You can come and have a look. Yes. And for those of you who already know what they look like, you don't need to come up. But so this is the bit that I read from there. But this is very distinct. So we've got low, 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 low. Don't. Right there. It actually starts here, but this is the one that's the most distinctive because this is all the. It's just like if you look at the ark. You see, you've got Anochi Adonai Elohecha, and then you've got low, low, low. You know, and that's what you've got here.
So where are the first ones? The seven together.
Yeah, the first.
Seven lows. Seven low.
Well, the first ones are up here. Anochi Adonai Elohecha. So I am the eternal one, your God. Asher Hotzitecha Mitzrayim, who brought you out of the land of Egypt. And then you've got Lo Taseh et Shem. So you've got them kind of. The first ones are wrapped up in here a bit, and then when you get down here, Zachor et Yom HaShabbat. Remember the Sabbath day, and then you've got some other stuff that's involved here. But one good thing is it's an easy one to roll to because if you're reading this, you can find it. Yeah, because if you're reading somewhere in there and you're going, where is it?
Indentation with the gaps.
Oh, you would ask me that.
Yeah. Well done, Linda.
All right, you tell me next time.
I don't mind telling you next time, but I can't remember. Some of them are bitty like this, but this is distinctive, just as what Renee read last week, which was Bishalach, the Song of the Sea. It's a very distinctive pattern as well. So now if somebody up here wants to lift that. You want to have a go, Josh? Go on. Sorry, I just called you the wrong name. Sam, let me try again. One of those days.
Baruch Shem Torah Israel.
And who's ever supposed to be up here helping to dress that and put it back together, please come now. nice and fast, Jesse. And if you can stand up now with that out after you get it finished dressed. And if you want to stand up and if everybody else stands up, that would be great. So you have some community blessings. Eternal God, we ask your blessing for our sovereign King Charles, for all those who govern our country and all who influence the quality of its national life. May they be conscious of their responsibility and we of ours, so that together we may fashion in this country a society with freedom, justice, and compassion at its heart, one in which diversity is respected and cherished. May the one who blessed our ancestors bless all our brothers and sisters of the house of Israel, who enter synagogues to study, pray, and to give aid to those in need. May the Holy One, to whom all praise is due, hear their prayers and help them to fulfill their aspirations for good. We also ask your blessing on the state of Israel and its leaders, that they may be inspired by the words of Torah and the prophets to govern with justice and compassion, creating a society in which the image of God in all who live there is recognized and respected. Yahallelu et Shem Adonai, ki nizkar shemo levado. This is the covenant I will make with the house of Israel in time to come, says the Eternal One. I will put my teaching within them and engrave it on their hearts. I will be their God, and they shall be my people. No longer shall anyone need to teach a friend or a neighbor to know me, for they all shall know me, young and old alike.
Ashirenu Adonai Elecha V'nashua Adesh Yameinu K'kedem
You can sit down now.
Adesh Yameinu
So today we read the 10 Commandments, one of which is do not bear false witness against your neighbor. We might think of this as being about a court of law, but actually it's more than that. What comes to my mind is the scene in the play The Crucible, where the townsfolk begin to denounce their neighbors as witches in a sort of mass hysteria. This play was based on an actual event, the Salem witch trials, and was written by Arthur Miller in the 1950s as a response to the McCarthy era and its hysterical hunt for so-called communists. And this seems to be reflected in the current rhetoric about people who are trans. It seems all too easy for us humans to hear something and repeat it without any real knowledge of the subject. Far too easy for us to render other those whom we don't know. Many times we don't mean to be malicious, but we hear and repeat something because we don't know and understand the truth. It seems easy to forget that people understand their own lived experiences better than we do. And perhaps the least we can do is respect that and follow the Tzfat Emet's teaching that we should withhold our judgment about whether another person's truth is in fact true. We should not be surprised at the multiplicity of gender identities that we are beginning to notice in the world. They've been around all along. We just didn't notice them. There are Jewish texts which indicate gender and sex are not so clear-cut as is sometimes thought. The Midrashic collection, Tanhuma Yelamdenu, contains a teaching that Dinah, Leah's daughter, was originally male, but was transformed into a girl at Leah's request. The mystics of Tzfat discussed the possibility of a female soul entering a male body and a male soul entering a female body. There's a newspaper account in 1915 of the gender transition of a Jewish immigrant in Chicago, and a tale of gender transition in a shtetl in Ukraine, published in the Daily Forward in 1936. This concerns a person who appeared to be a girl, yet not quite a girl. At 23, Bela went away to Odessa to an important professor who apparently helped her transition to the man she had always felt she was. He returned as Beryl, married, and lived out his life as a respected man in the shtetl. And it seemed that given everything that we're hearing at the moment, and given that this is LGBTQ plus History Month, that I thought it was a good time to address this issue in light of what we've read in Torah. And I'm going to confess having known very little about trans issues until 1994-95, when a renowned academic economist on an economics email discussion group I was in disappeared and then surfaced sometime later and told the whole grim story of having been detained in a mental hospital because his sister decided he was insane for wanting to transition. Deirdre McCloskey had cross-dressed for years before finally taking the decision to fully become Deirdre. We got the whole story over the next couple of years, surgery after surgery, including facial surgery, bottom surgery, vocal cord surgery twice, electrolysis, all of this in the United States, monetary cost about $90,000, and an emotional cost impossible to measure, loss of wife, son, and daughter. Nobody does this without feeling they can no longer deny who they are. Professor McCloskey chronicles this in her book, Crossings. I met, and I do recommend this book, by the way, if anyone would like to really, Deirdre doesn't gloss over anything. You'll get a lot of detail in this, but it's very, very true to her, and it is a brilliant book, even though it's some years old now. I met Professor McCloskey. She was invited to speak to an academic conference that I was at. When it was time for the lunch break, she asked the very sensible question, "Where's the ladies' room?" And the answer from a man in the audience, "Don't you mean the men's?" Some laughter, mostly silence, until a lone woman's voice, "I'll show you, come on. Women always go to the restroom together." That voice was mine. Deirdre herself offers some possible reasons why people find the idea of transitioning so difficult. She suggests that in the case of men who are transitioning or to women, and I really don't like necessarily using the word transitioning. It's probably better to say, under gender reassignment surgery or whatever, because they're actually just becoming the person they are. But she suggests that women are so used to feeling that they need to be on their guard around men that they constantly watch what men are up to. Yeah? And any unusual action raises suspicions, and I'm getting some laughter, and I think some of you kind of know that when you're young and you're walking on the street and some guy walks by and whistles at you, you think, oh no, what's next? And so we do kind of end up looking around. So unusual action raises suspicion, but that doesn't give us permission to always mistrust someone's actions. And we may never know the devastating impact words and lack of understanding can have. When I served South London Liberal Synagogue, a person presenting as male, began to attend my Access to Judaism class and services. Eventually, we had a more formal meeting where she explained that she had had gender confirmation surgery and had fully transitioned to female until her priest convinced her she was going to hell and that she needed to detransition. And tearfully she asked, "Do you think I'm going to hell? I can't live like this. I just want to die. I want to kill myself, but will I go to hell?" And those of you who know me know I tend not to mince words, so she got a very short answer from me: "No, but your priest will for murder." We talked, and thankfully, she found a counselor, ditched the priest, and went back to being the woman she had known she was since she was young. Well, I can tell you about people I've met, but this is a secondary information, secondary story. I can't tell you about their lived experience of someone who is trans, but my friend, the Rev Dr Karl Rutlidge, has kindly agreed to do so. So I now invite Karl to come up.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you for inviting me to join you today. It's lovely to be able to be here. I really am disappointed, though, you didn't have the thunder machine. That did sound so much fun. I think that's what's missing in Methodist churches is a thunder machine for dramatic emphasis.
You can borrow mine.
So the latest census data suggests that in England and Wales there are about 96,000 trans people, or at least people who were willing to say so on the census. I suspect that that's a bit of an underestimate. We are therefore quite a small percentage of the population. So many of you may have never knowingly met a trans person before, just because there aren't that many of us kicking around. You wouldn't think that from the way things are presented in the media, however. It's quite rare to go even a single day without one of the major newspapers printing some sort of anti-trans article. Very often, trans women are portrayed as sexual predators, or if not themselves, then enabling of predatory men who want to take advantage of trans rights in order to attack women. We are often called deluded, dangerous, mentally ill, mutilators of our bodies, people who should not exist. As a trans man, I get all of that, plus being told very often that either I'm a confused lesbian, although I've never identified as lesbian, and that really I'm just a silly little girl who needs protecting from themselves and sorting out. So that kind of rhetoric is all too widespread. It has had a profound effect on my mental health and well-being, I can't deny that. But nonetheless, I don't regret for a moment that I finally transitioned in my late 20s. I first sort of recognised that something wasn't quite right, perhaps, when I was about 4 or 5. I managed to get myself thrown out of nursery school, which is a very long story I won't bore you with. But primary school, therefore, was really the first time I'd been around lots of other children. And I really struggled with the gendered expectations that came with that. You know, the pressure to only play with certain other children, to act in certain ways, to have to dress a particular way. And it really confused me. I thought, why are they telling me to do all these girl things when I'm a boy? And I remember trying to talk to one of my teachers about it. And she said to me, I'll never forget this, bearing in mind I was only a 5-year-old, if you say anything like that again, your feet won't touch the ground. So the effect that had on me was really profound. I felt deeply ashamed of having voiced that sentiment and who I was. Clearly word got back to my mother because she started buying me these horrible stripy dresses and trying to feminise me, and then getting very upset when I vandalised them and refused to wear them and threw a strop and so forth. So eventually I was allowed to be a tomboy in my mum's eyes, which was sort of acceptable at primary age, more difficult to do at secondary. But I knew, and it never went away, that this was not really who I am. It meant that my teenage years were really rather distressing. I like the way Janet doesn't pull any punches, and I don't tend to in my story, so I apologise if some of what I'm about to describe is offensive. But when you go from being 11 years old, having short hair, quite flat-chested and able to pass as a boy when you're not in school, to a 12-year-old with double D breasts who cannot possibly get away with identifying as a boy in public and being treated as such, it sucks. And it was one of the reasons why, when I was about 14, 15, I took a drug overdose. If it wasn't for a friend's mother who was a doctor who sorted me out, got me to hospital and dealt with my parents, I wouldn't be here now. It wasn't solely to do with distress around gender identity that happened to me. I was also in a very difficult family situation and other things were going on. But that sense that every day there was a divergence between who I felt I was on the inside and what my body was saying on the outside had just become too overwhelming to deal with. But I'd actually never come across the word trans, and that was part of the problem. Under Section 28, schools were not allowed to do anything that could be classed as promoting homosexuality, which my school interpreted as you can't even talk about being gay. So you can imagine if you couldn't have a conversation about being gay, then gender identity issues were just not on the table at all. So it was only when I landed at university as an undergraduate and said, what does the T in LGBT stand for, that I heard the word trans and I realised, oh, heck, that's me. But then I went through a long process of thinking, well, the only people that I've met who are trans women, so can I be trans as well? How does this all work? There were no role models out there, and I was really struggling with my sexuality and other things as well, so it kind of got pushed down for some time. But I reached a point in my late 20s when I was in a relationship with my now wife and had come out as bi. I reached a point of thinking, yeah, I can present myself in a certain way, more in my masculine clothes and so on, but I'm not really a woman doing that. I'm actually a man wrestling with society's expectations. So I began to go through a process. The NHS still calls it gender reassignment, but I think gender affirmation is probably a better phrase. I transitioned over a period of several years. There's often a narrative in the media that people are rushed through transitioning, and that really is not true. It took me a year to get from seeing my GP to my first gender clinic appointment. And I remember specifically it was the 1st of March 2013 because it was precisely 1 year after I came out at work and told my colleagues who I was. And it was another 2 years before I had top surgery. So for me, it was a long journey of coming to terms with myself. Nothing happened overnight, nothing happened quickly. And one of the great scandals facing trans people at the moment is our healthcare access is absolutely appalling. Yes, I understand there are waiting lists across the NHS. The Tories have decimated this. Apologies if you're a Tory supporter. But for trans people, waiting 4 or 5 years for an initial consultation at a gender clinic, when you've then got to have 2 psychiatrists sign off to say that you really are who you say you are, before you can even begin to get your first prescription for hormones, that's if your GP will prescribe it rather than saying that they have religious reasons for not doing so, or so on and so on and so forth. It does not happen quickly. And people don't transition for the fun of it, or because they're curious about other spaces that they might be able to go into. It's just, so much of the media narrative essentially is a nonsense. But for me, transitioning really was about recognising I'd reached this point where it's like if I didn't embrace who I really am, I would just burst. You know, I had to do it. It felt, I can't live if I don't do this. And it was really hard because my wife did initially really, really struggle with it. She'd grown up in conservative evangelical churches where she'd been told for so many years that being gay was wrong. And when we got together, it was the point where she'd come out. So then having for her to wrestle with what does it mean that I'm now with a man was really hard. We went on a long journey. There were a lot of cups of tea, a lot of tears, a lot of really wrestling with things. But it will be our 10th wedding anniversary this year, so we're proof that you can make it. And I have to say, on the whole, my experience of being a minister in the Methodist Church has been really positive. Don't get me started on the Church of England, where I grew up. That's a whole other story. But I think looking around me at the moment, the biggest thing that really troubles me is the reduction of what it is to be trans to an issue. You don't need me to tell you what's problematic about a group of people being described as an issue or a question. That is so often how trans people, we're not alone in being talked about like that, but that is very often how we're discussed and presented these days. And I think what's lost is that sense that actually we're real people. And when we're being constantly monstered and painted as a threat and so on, it does have a profound effect on who we are. For me, coming out as trans has been about flourishing, about truly being myself and being the person that I believe God always intended me to be. And I really just wish that more people could see me fundamentally as a human being and not as whatever they've read in the Daily Mail. So if there's one kind of takeaway from today, I guess I hope it would be that when you read stuff in the newspapers or on the television news or whatever it is that paints trans people in a negative light, as if we're all somehow responsible for the actions of one bad individual and so forth, that you'll stop and think, actually, no, they're talking about a real community of people which is as diverse and as quirky, as interesting as we are, and that hopefully being able to put that human face to it will enable you to challenge when you hear people make transphobic statements in public or sweeping generalisations about us. So thank you once again for inviting me, and thank you for listening. It's been a real privilege to be able to be with you.
Thank you, Karl. We continue now. With our, I'm coughing on top of everything else. We continue now with our concluding prayers as we turn to page 213 for and then. Am I reading this? Because I can't remember. Am I reading it? Are you singing it? You'll find the Judy Chicago poem that we often use here in lieu of the Elenu, because it looks forward to that time, which the Elenu does. So this is the time when we look forward to a time when people will come together and respect each other for who they are. I'm reading, okay. We're all reading together then on page 213. And then all that has divided us will merge, and then compassion will be wedded to power, and then softness will come to a world that is harsh and unkind, and then both men and women will be gentle, and then both women and men will be strong, and then no person will be subject to another person's will, and then all will be rich and free and varied, and then the greed of some will give way to the needs of many, and then all will share equally in the earth's abundance, and then all will care for the sick and the weak and the old, and then all will nourish the young, and then all will cherish life's creatures, and then all will live in harmony with each other and earth, and then everywhere, once again. The growing good of the world is partly dependent on unhistoric acts, and that things are not so ill with you and me as they might have been is half owing to the number who lived faithfully a hidden life and rest in unvisited tombs. Even when they are gone, the departed are with us. They inspire us to live as in their higher moments they themselves sought to live. We remember them now. They remain in our hearts. They are a continual blessing. And this Shabbat, we think particularly of Sybil Maxson, the mother of Lisa Walmsley, of Beryl Rodell, the mother of Miriam Rodell, and I actually think Miriam was here last week, of Natalie Passo, the sister of Dominic Schultes, of Lisa Abramson, the mother of Judy Parrish, the grandmother of Nicholas and Jonathan Parrish, and of Sue. I can't read my own writing. Of Sarah Pollins. We also think of those whose lives were lost because they were trans and were either murdered or who took their own lives. And we also remember the thousands who have perished in the earthquake in Turkey and Syria over the last few days. So for those whom we have named and mentioned, for all those whose names we hold in our own hearts, and for those for whom there was no one left to say Kaddish, we say together on page 524. Yit Gadal, Vit Kadash, Shmei Rabbah, V'alma Divrach Hirutei, V'amlich Malchutei, V'chayechon, V'yamechon, V'chayei L'chol Beit Yisrael, B'agalah V'zman Kariv, V'imru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevorach, L'olam L'olamei Almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitallah. Shmei d'kudisha ruchu. Le'ela min kol v'chata v'shita. Tushbachata v'nechemata. Da'amiron v'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shalom al rabba min shemaya. V'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav. Huya say shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol b'nei Adam, Imru. Amen.
Amen.
We can resume our seats. Are there announcements? There probably are. Next Friday night, I know, is Shabbat at home, and you can look that up for where it is, because I can't remember where it is.
June, whatever happens, but there's a limited number. So
Yeah, so you have to register. And next Shabbat, the service will be here, and it will be led by Rabbi Rene. I'm feeling like there's something else that we should remind people of, but I don't know what it is. Philip asked a question about aid to Turkey and Syria in an email, and I can remind you that World Jewish Relief is collecting. They have started a special fund, so you could donate there. Also, DEC, which works in connection with the Red Cross, they also do have a fund. And if you're looking for some place that might be able to be slightly more able to target relief to Syria than those, I would recommend donating to Choose Love, who have very close ties with the White Helmets, and they do have ways of getting money and supplies to the White Helmets who work in Syria. Choose Love. Choose Love. Yeah, it's a registered charity. Choose Love. So that's kind of an answer to that. So I think we're going to conclude with Einani Li Mili, which you will find on page 217. As we remember that if we want people to stand with us, we must stand with them. If I am not for myself, who will be for me? If I am only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when?
Which page?
217.
Einani li mili ukshiani latmi mani v'imro ashav ematai ematai. That's how it goes. Let's try again. Einani li mili ukshiani latmi mani v'imro ashav ematai ematai.
please rise for a blessing? May the source of strength who blessed the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing today and every day. And let us say, Amen. And we can go now for Kiddush, and besides the usual wine and bread, because tomorrow is my 73rd birthday, we have cake.
We're born in 1950.
Yeah,
Me too. In September.
so you've got a few months yet.
A few months.